Imagine being homeless at 16, just a stray girl on the streets, sleeping on concrete, praying for scraps. Then one day, a kind woman saved me and welcomed me into a billionaire's mansion. Sounds like a dream, right? For me, it turned into the most dangerous nightmare of my life. Because the moment I entered their home, her husband hated me. What he didn't know is that the girl he tried to break would be the one to destroy him. My name is Layla, and I wasn't born into a home. I was born into survival. The streets were my parents. Hunger was my lullaby. I grew up in the cracks of a city that only noticed me when I begged too loudly. Most people passed by with disgust or pity, but rarely kindness. I learned early that in this world, the rich lived in castles while the poor were left to rot on sidewalks. By the time I turned 16, I had already stopped dreaming. I wasn't a child anymore. I was a ghost with skin and bones, haunting alleys and abandoned bus stops. Rain, cold, hunger, it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Until she came. Her name was Isabella. It was a stormy evening when I first saw her. I was curled under a broken billboard, drenched to my soul, shivering and hugging my knees. Most people would have ignored me. Some would have tossed a coin. But Isabella stopped. Her umbrella hovered above me like a miracle. "Sweetheart," she whispered, her voice softer than silk. "What's your name?" "Oh, Layla," I stammered, unsure why she cared. She didn't flinch at my dirt or my ragged clothes. Instead, she wrapped her coat around me. A coat that smelled of roses and wealth, like everything I never had. That night, she took me to her home. Not just a house, a mansion. The kind I had only seen in magazines littered in trash cans. Glittering chandeliers, marble floors, rooms bigger than my entire childhood. For the first time, I slept in a bed with blankets that didn't smell of mildew. But heaven always comes with a shadow. I met him the next morning. Richard, Isabella's husband. He looked at me like I was gum stuck to his shoe. His jaw tightened, his eyes cold and sharp. "What is this?" he demanded. "This is Layla," Isabella said gently, placing a protective arm around me. "She's staying with us now. She needs a home." Richard's laugh was bitter. "A stray? In my house?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice but not his venom. "Listen, girl. Don't think you belong here. You're a guest. Temporary. Don't get comfortable." His words stung, but I stayed silent. I owed Isabella too much to fight back. Days turned into weeks. Isabella treated me like the daughter she never had. She bought me clothes, enrolled me in online classes, even encouraged my love for books. For the first time, I thought maybe I wasn't cursed. Maybe I could build a future, but Richard never let me forget. I was an outsider. He'd scoff when I joined them at dinner. He'd make cutting remarks. "Careful, Isabella. She's after your money. Stray cats look innocent until they scratch. One day you'll regret bringing her in." I swallowed every insult, hiding my pain behind polite smiles. But inside, a storm was brewing. Then one night I heard something I wasn't supposed to. I had woken up thirsty, wandering down the grand staircase to fetch water. From the study, Richard's voice drifted out, low and urgent. I paused. "I don't care what it costs. Make sure those accounts are hidden offshore. If Isabella finds out, I'm finished." My blood ran cold. Offshore accounts? Hidden money? Then came laughter. A woman's laughter. Not Isabella's. I peeked through the door crack. Richard sat with a glass of whiskey, a woman perched on his lap, kissing his neck. I froze, heart pounding. So it was true. The man who called me a parasite was himself a leech, draining Isabella while cheating on her. That was the night something inside me shifted. I wasn't just a stray. I wasn't just lucky to be saved. I had power, because I knew Richard's secret and I was going to use it. Richard's eyes followed me everywhere. At first I thought it was just dislike, the kind that dripped from his words every time he spoke to me. But soon I realized it was more than that. It was suspicion, hatred. The kind of hatred that needed fuel, that searched for reasons. He began small. One evening, Isabella's diamond bracelet went missing. She was distressed, searching every drawer in her vanity. Richard stood by the doorway, arms folded. "Check her room," he said coldly. Tilting his head toward me, I froze. I didn't, but Isabella cut him off, her voice trembling. "Richard, don't. She wouldn't steal from me." He smirked as if enjoying the performance. Everyone has a price, Isabella. You just don't want to see it. The bracelet. Turned up the next day, tucked between sofa cushions. Isabella apologized to me, but the damage had been done. Richard had planted the first seed of doubt. Then came the whispers. I'd be walking down the hall, only to hear Richard murmuring to Isabella in the next room. She's not what she seems. Girls like her, they learn to survive by lying, by manipulating. You think she loves you, but she only loves your money. Sometimes I'd catch Isabella's voice, shaky but still loyal. No, Richard, she's different. She's a child who needed love, but other times, she stayed quiet. And silence cuts deeper than words. I tried to prove myself useful. I helped Isabella with her charity work, assisted the staff, studied hard to show I wasn't wasting her kindness. But Richard was always one step ahead, twisting every action into suspicion. When I stayed up late reading, she's plotting. When I asked questions about his business, see, she's fishing for information. When Isabella praised me, of course she's sweet. Parasites always charm their hosts. It was like living under a magnifying glass that burned hotter each day. One night I overheard an argument. Why do you hate her so much? Isabella demanded. Her voice was raised, rare for her. Hate? Richard's laugh was sharp. I don't hate her. I hate what she represents. You bring strays into our house and suddenly they're family? What's next? Handing her our fortune. She's not after money, Isabella snapped. Richard's voice dropped low, almost venomous. And if she is? If she turns on you one day, don't come crying to me. The silence that followed was heavy. I sat in the dark hallway, fists clenched. For the first time, doubt slithered into me too. What if Richard was right? What if, no matter how hard I tried, Isabella would eventually see me as nothing but a burden? But then something unexpected happened. 2 weeks later, Isabella left for a charity trip abroad. For the first time since I arrived, I was alone in the mansion, with Richard. The air was colder without her. Meals were silent, except for his occasional snide comments. But one night, silence broke into cruelty. I was in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water. Richard entered, whiskey in hand. His steps were unsteady, his words slurred but sharp. You think you're clever, don't you? He sneered. Sitting in my wife's lap like a little savior project. Eating food you didn't earn, sleeping under a roof you don't deserve. I set the glass down carefully, forcing my voice to stay calm. I never asked to be here. She chose to help me. His smile was twisted. Oh, I know. Isabella loves her toys. But toys break. And when you break, no one keeps them around. He leaned closer, his breath heavy with alcohol. Remember this, girl. The moment you slip up, I'll be there. And when you're gone, Isabella will thank me for it. My hands trembled, but I held his gaze. For the first time, I didn't look away. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise. Maybe even fear. Because he realized I wasn't as weak as he thought. The next morning, I found courage in an unlikely place. Maria, one of the housemaids, pulled me aside while cleaning. She was older, with tired eyes but a kind smile. Don't let him scare you, she whispered. You're not the first he's tried to break. What do you mean? I asked. Maria hesitated, glancing around before leaning closer. Richard, he's not a good man. He cheats. He lies. Everyone here knows it, but no one dares say a word because Isabella loves him. We stay silent to keep our jobs. My heart pounded. Why are you telling me this? Because you remind me of my daughter, she said softly. And because I see the fire in you. Don't let him win. Her words lit something inside me. For weeks, I had been shrinking under Richard's shadow. But now, I realized, I wasn't alone. That evening, I searched for proof. While Richard was out, I slipped into his study. My hands shook as I opened drawers, rifled through papers. Most of it was business documents, incomprehensible to me. But then, I found a flash drive tucked beneath a stack of files. My gut told me it was important. I pocketed it, heart racing, and returned to my room. Later that night, when the house was quiet, I plugged it into the laptop Isabella had gifted me. My screen filled with spreadsheets, bank statements, offshore accounts, money funneling out of Isabella's company into Richard's hidden vaults. My chest tightened. He wasn't just cruel, he was stealing from her, and I had the proof. But the danger doubled. 2 days later, Richard caught me leaving the study. His eyes narrowed. "What were you doing in there?" "Looking for a book," I lied quickly. He studied me for a long moment, then smiled. Not kindly, but like a predator who knows the prey is trapped. "You're playing a dangerous game, Layla," he said quietly. "And games have consequences." That night, I couldn't sleep. The flash drive burned in my pocket like a ticking bomb. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. If I failed, Isabella would lose everything, and Richard would win. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was planning. Suspicion is like a slow poison. Once it enters, it spreads, quietly but relentlessly. I could feel it in Isabella's eyes sometimes, not outright distrust, but a flicker of doubt planted by Richard's venom. It began with little things. One afternoon, Isabella misplaced her favorite silk scarf. She searched her closet, the living room, even asked the staff. Richard didn't miss his chance. "Maybe you should check Layla's room," he suggested casually, sipping his wine. "She has new tastes these days." "Richard," Isabella's voice was sharp, but her hands trembled. I felt my face burn. "I would never—" Before I could finish, Maria entered with the scarf neatly folded. "Found it, madam." It slipped behind the dresser. Relief washed over Isabella. She hugged me, apologizing. But I saw the shadow in her eyes. Richard had succeeded again. He had cracked her trust, even if just a little. A week later, he escalated. I came down for breakfast one morning to find the dining table unusually tense. Isabella sat stiffly, a small jewelry box open in front of her. Richard leaned back, smirking. Inside the box was a necklace, Isabella's late mother's necklace. "It was in Layla's drawer," Richard announced smoothly, as if he were reporting a fact. My heart dropped. "That's not true," I cried. "I didn't—" "Enough," Isabella said, her voice shaking. She looked at me with hurt in her eyes. "Layla, tell me the truth." I wanted to scream, to tear the world apart to prove my innocence. But Richard's smile told me everything. He had planted it there himself. "I swear on my life," I said, my voice breaking. "I never touched it." Silence. Maria stepped forward suddenly. "She's telling the truth, ma'am. I cleaned her room yesterday. That necklace wasn't there." Richard's face twitched, but he quickly masked it with a laugh. "Maybe I made a mistake. Who knows? Things get misplaced." Isabella didn't respond. She closed the box, her expression unreadable. That night I cried silently into my pillow. I felt the old street girl inside me whisper, "Run. Leave before they throw you out." But another voice, fiercer, burned louder. "No. You've been running your whole life. This time, you fight." I started watching Richard closely. Every call he made in his study, every envelope he tucked into his briefcase, every late-night business dinner that ended with lipstick smudges on his collar. And slowly, a plan began to form. I couldn't expose him yet, not without undeniable proof. If I failed, Isabella would never forgive me. So I needed allies. I started with Maria. She was hesitant at first. "Layla, this is dangerous. If he finds out—" "He already wants me gone," I told her. "But if I can prove what he's doing, Isabella will see the truth. She'll see who he really is." Maria hesitated, then nodded. "You're braver than I thought. All right, I'll help you." The driver, James, joined us too. He had been with the family for 10 years and hated Richard's arrogance. "That man thinks we're all blind," James muttered, "but I've driven him to places Isabella never knew about." Together, we became silent shadows in Richard's world. Maria slipped into his office to photograph documents. James noted down addresses of his secret meetings. And me? I focused on the flash drive. Late at night, I dug deeper into its contents. Transactions to shell companies, payments to unknown accounts, names of people I didn't recognize. But something about them smelled illegal. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. Richard wasn't just cheating on Isabella. He was laundering money, and that was the weapon I needed. But Richard wasn't idle either. One evening, Isabella called me into the living room. Richard was already there, sipping whiskey. The air felt heavy. "Layla," Isabella said softly, "Richard tells me you've been sneaking around, going into his study." My stomach dropped. "I haven't," I said quickly. Richard chuckled. "Lies come so easily to her now. She was in there last Tuesday. I saw her." That's not true. I snapped. Then what were you doing near my desk? Admiring the woodwork? His smirk was a blade. Isabella looked between us, torn. Layla, I want to believe you, but... Her words sliced me open. But. Always the but. Always the seed of doubt Richard planted. I forced myself to stay calm. If you don't believe me now, that's fine. But one day soon, you'll see the truth. And when you do, you'll know I never lied to you. I turned and walked away, my legs trembling, my heart breaking. Behind me, Richard's laughter followed, like a curse. That night, Maria found me pacing my room. He's tightening the noose, she whispered. If you don't move soon, he'll drive Isabella completely against you. I know, I said, my hands shaking but my voice steady. That's why we're going to turn his own game against him. Maria frowned. How? By making him believe he's already won, I said. Over the next few days, I played the part Richard wanted me to be. Quiet, defeated, as if I were giving up. He noticed. His arrogance grew. He became careless. And in his carelessness, he left cracks wide, enough for me to slip through. James followed him one night to a private club. There, Richard met with two men whose names matched the ones I'd seen on the flash drive transactions. James snapped photos from the car. Meanwhile, Maria managed to overhear a call where Richard arranged another offshore transfer. She wrote down every detail. Piece by piece, our puzzle grew, and I knew exactly how to complete it. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Isabella announced she wanted to host a grand charity gala, a night to raise funds for orphaned children. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had once been one of those children. Now I had the chance to use this gala for something bigger, for justice. I smiled at Isabella, keeping my voice steady. That's a wonderful idea. But inside, I was already planning. That gala would be Richard's stage, and I would make sure it became his downfall. Hope feels dangerous when you've lived in fear. For weeks, I had been clinging to scraps of safety, terrified Richard would destroy me with a single lie. But now, for the first time, I had more than scraps. I had a plan. The gala was scheduled. For 3 weeks away. A glittering evening where politicians, CEOs, journalists, and the city's wealthiest elite would attend. A night meant to showcase generosity. But I would turn it into a night of revelation, and Richard would never see it coming. Step 1. Gathering the evidence. Every night, after the mansion fell silent, I locked myself in my room with the laptop and the flash drive. Numbers blurred into each other, but patterns emerged. Shell companies tied to fake charities, offshore accounts bleeding Isabella's money, wire transfers that linked back to criminal networks. James and Maria helped too. James tailed Richard to meetings, snapping photos of him exchanging briefcases with shady men. Maria managed to slip into Richard's office during his afternoon naps, photographing documents that confirmed the fraud. Piece by piece, we built a case so solid it couldn't be denied. But I needed more than papers. I needed impact. Something undeniable. So I called in help. Step 2. The tech ally among Isabella's staff was a young IT assistant named Aaron. He was quiet, sharp-eyed, and had always treated me kindly. I decided to take a risk and tell him everything. At first, he thought I was joking. You're saying Richard is laundering money? That's huge, Layla. I have proof, I said, sliding the flash drive across the desk. But I need you to help me make it unbreakable. I want this exposed in a way Richard can't bury or twist. Aaron hesitated, then nodded. I don't like the guy either. He treats everyone like dirt. Okay, I'm in. Over the next 2 weeks, Aaron worked quietly with me. He created encrypted files, compiled financial trails, even pulled metadata from Richard's emails to show he had orchestrated the schemes himself. By the end, our dossier was a weapon, clean, sharp, and lethal. Step 3. Setting the trap, the idea. Wasn't just to hand over evidence. No, Richard was too slippery for that. He'd spin lies, cry fake, or blame someone else. No, I needed to humiliate him, to rip off his mask in front of everyone he respected and feared losing. The gala was perfect. Isabella would be there, glowing in her element, believing it to be a night of charity. The city's eyes would be watching, and Richard, arrogant Richard, would think it was his night too. A night to parade his wealth, his influence. He had no idea I was sharpening the knife behind my back. Richard grows, bolder as the gala approached. Richard became unbearable. He gloated, sneered, even taunted me openly. "Enjoy your last days in this house, girl," he whispered one evening when Isabella wasn't around. "After the gala, Isabella and I will be rid of you. I'm making sure of it." I forced a smile. "I'll be gone soon, don't worry." He laughed, mistaking surrender for defeat. Finally, some sense. But inside, I was trembling. Not with fear, but anticipation. The mansion was transformed into a palace of light. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, golden drapes shimmered, and the air buzzed with the hum of power. Guests arrived in sleek cars, stepping out in diamonds and tuxedos. Photographers snapped photos, journalists scribbled notes. Isabella glowed in a sapphire gown, the picture of elegance. She greeted guests with warmth, thanking them for supporting children in need. Richard was at her side, grinning like a king. He shook hands with politicians, posed for photos, boasted about donations, most of which he had stolen. And me, I wore a simple but elegant dress Isabella had chosen for me, standing quietly by her side. To everyone else, I was just the adopted charity case, a pretty story Isabella liked to showcase. Nobody suspected I was holding the match that would burn Richard's empire to ashes. Aaron had set everything up. At exactly 9 p.m., when the evening program began, the big projector screen in the ballroom would light up, not with the slideshow. Richard had prepared, but with our evidence. Emails, bank transfers, photos, names. Proof that would turn whispers into gasps and gasps into headlines. As I stood among the glittering crowd, my heart pounded like a drum. My palms were slick. My throat dry. This was it, no turning back. Richard took the stage first, smirking as applause washed over him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began smoothly, "tonight is about giving back, about sharing our blessings with those less fortunate." I almost choked on the hypocrisy. He droned on about generosity, about children in need, children like I once was. He raised his glass, basking in the attention, and then, right on cue, the screen behind him flickered. At first, the audience thought it was part of the presentation. Smiling photos of Richard and Isabella gave way to spreadsheets, transaction logs, emails with his signature, photos of him handing off briefcases. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "What is this?" someone whispered. More documents flashed on screen. Offshore accounts labeled under shell companies. Messages where Richard bragged about hiding money from Isabella. Then came the final blow. A photo James had taken, Richard in the arms of another woman, laughing as he signed a contract for yet another fraudulent transfer. "What the hell is this, Richard?" a politician barked. "Is this real?" gasped another guest. Richard froze, his face draining of color. He spun toward the projector, then toward Isabella, who stood frozen, her glass trembling in her hand. This is fake," Richard shouted, his voice cracking. "Lies! Someone's sabotaging me!" But the evidence kept rolling, slide after slide, undeniable, damning. Aaron had even included a final screen, presented by someone who refuses to be silent anymore. Every head turned toward me. Richard's eyes widened, fury blazing. "You," he hissed, and in that moment, heart pounding, knees weak, I stood tall. "Yes," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the stunned ballroom. "Me. My name is Layla, and I won't let you destroy the woman who saved me." The room fell into stunned silence, and Richard's empire collapsed in a single breath. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Politicians whispered urgently, distancing themselves from Richard. "Arrest him!" someone shouted. Within minutes, police officers, already alerted by Aaron, stormed. Richard tried to protest, screaming lies, but the evidence was undeniable. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists as his empire crumbled in front of the very people he had tried to impress. Isabella stood frozen, tears in her eyes, not for Richard, but for the years she had wasted believing in him. Slowly, she turned to me. "Layla." Her voice cracked. "I doubted you. I let him poison me against you." I shook my head gently. "You saved me when no one else would. Tonight, I just saved you back." She pulled me into her arms, holding me tighter than ever before. And in that embrace, I felt something I had chased my whole life: family, trust, love. Weeks later, Richard's face filled newspapers, not as a philanthropist, but as a criminal. His accounts were frozen, his reputation destroyed. Isabella divorced him, reclaimed her company, and publicly credited me for uncovering the truth. And me? I was no longer the girl who slept under billboards. I was Layla, the girl who turned her pain into power, who found her voice and used it. And I vowed to spend the rest of my life giving other girls like me the same chance Isabella had given me. Because revenge wasn't just about destroying Richard, it was about building myself.